welcome everyone to the APREA Real Assets TV conversation. This is related to the ESG Advantage, how REITs are embracing sustainability. I'm here today with 4 participants who are going to speak about their company's journey on sustainability and how they're addressing various factors, which are many. First of all, we have Calvin Lee, Managing Director. He's a Sustainability and Risk Governance at Link Asset Management Limited. He'll be speaking, followed by Simon Garing, Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director, Cromwell EREIT Management. Naoki Suzuki, President and CEO of KJR Management. And finally, Sharifa Bakar Ali, ESG Specialist at UEM Magenta, talking about her journey as well. So we've got a format with a few questions, and we're going to keep it a very open discussion. Each participant will have the chance to really elaborate on topics that they face. This is a challenge for all investors, for all real asset owners, asset managers, fund managers like myself. I'm the CEO and founder of BNI Capital, which invests in public real estate securities. So this is a topic that's near and dear to our heart and something that we have to address. So I appreciate the efforts from all of them. And I'd like to start with the first question that's for the group. I'd like to ask you all, again, starting with Calvin, what challenges does your company face in the sustainability journey? Really, I'm trying to ask, how does your company integrate E, S, and G? And what are some of the kind of real challenges, investment requirements, governance structure, climate targets, reporting that you'd like to highlight in that question?
Christian, thanks for the time. And thanks to everyone else on this panel as well. It's good to see everyone. I think that at Link, I've been here for about 11 years, coming up to 12, and it's really been an entire journey over the last 12 years. On this ESG side, we started off with environmental focus, energy, waste, water, because that's probably the easiest thing to start off with. Gradually transitioning over to focus a little bit more on the social aspects. How are we integrating, working with the community, and so forth. We've always done governance quite well. We've had sustainability committees in place, whether at the management level and even at the board level from an oversight perspective. But all of this has been built up, again, over 11 years. One of the key challenges that we're facing right now is really just the sheer number of benchmarks that we have to deal with. From a real estate perspective, I think that the preeminent benchmark will be GRESB, Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark. And then we have MSCI, we have S&P, we have some of the regional focuses as well. The key is now that a lot of investors are focusing on ESG investment, they're asking for more data. So that's really the challenge. You know, how do we deal with all this data? How do we manage the data? Where do we get the data from? Internal controls. Some of this has been fleshed out by ISSB, helping us to focus which areas are going to be important. We have the upcoming IAASB, the International Assurance and Auditing Standards Board, trying to come up with the protocol for how do you measure some of these sustainability data as well. So I think that there is, moving forward, there's going to be some light at the end of the tunnel. We're starting to see some coalescence around what should be important. And hopefully we'll discuss a little bit more of this during the rest of this discussion.
And Simon, how would you answer that question?
Thanks, Christian, and thanks very much for having me. And I also look forward to having a chat with the fellow panelists. So at Cromwell European REIT, as the label suggests, we're about 2.5 billion euros of pan-European, but predominantly Western European logistics and Grade A office. We've got over 200 staff on the ground throughout 14, 15 locations to manage the assets. And that's an important point as we go through the sustainability journey. Again, from a balance sheet perspective, which often, is now becoming more in light from investors, more focused attention. And again, we see the capital management, not just the asset management, but capital management is also very important in a sustainability journey. And so our board policy range of keeping gearing between 35 and 40% meant that over a year ago, we started asset sale program to ensure that, one, we were able to face any of the credit challenges that a lot of other REITs are facing, as well as being able to fund our substantial enhancement, asset enhancement program, which again we'll talk about as part of our sustainability journey, and really aimed, targeted at the tenant wave, this massive wave from tenants looking for more sustainable premises. And so it's something that we'll bring out in this discussion. And then finally, as Calvin mentioned, making sure that we focus on the external rating agencies, which Christian, you and so many other investors, about 95% global investors, now use some form of rating agents as some form of their investment process or their own internal processes. But being one of only 3 REITs in Singapore with an MSCI AA rating is really important. And we can talk again about our journey over the last 3 or 4 years, in part driven by both the equity and the credit markets. And then finally, looking at the governance aspect, and recently with the latest GRES results coming out with a 100% score in the governance and social component of the GRESB score, which has got about 38 points weighting, again, is something that we were very pleased, proud, and have been very focused on, that governance element. So again, we'll talk about that today.
Great. Thank you, Simon. And also, speaking as a fund manager, we are really appreciative for all the time and effort that all of you put into the additional reporting, both to MSCI and to GRESB and to other. It really makes our job a lot easier, and it adds transparency and benchmarking potential for us when we communicate to our customers as well, the scoring and the impact that each one of our investments is making. So thank you. Naoki-san, Suzuki-san, sorry. Could you follow up on that same question? Do you have anything to add related to your operations?
Right. Thank you, Christian. Hello, everyone. My name is Naoki Suzuki, CEO of KJR Management. KJR Management is a KKR Group Japanese REIT manager. We are managing 2 public listed REITs. Total AUM is 1.6 trillion yen, about $11 billion. One fund is Japan Metropolitan Fund, we call JMF, which is a multi-sector fund. We are investing in retail, office, multifamily, and other sector assets. And the other fund is called Industrial and Infrastructure Fund, which we call IIF, is investing in logistics center and the other industrial properties. So we are investing whole sector properties in Japan. So our challenges is pretty much in line with Calvin mentioned. Last 10 years, we rather focused on E part of the ESG, trying to improve the environmental performance of the portfolio. But for us 2-3 years, we are gradually spending more time for S factors, including community management and DEI policy and also human rights policy. This is a challenge for us because these part of the requirements are pretty new to us, and we are trying to find what the investors and the people are expecting to us about this. So that's recent challenges to us. On the E part, we are also facing some new challenges because recently the more technological progress happened, and also the target is becoming higher for the carbon neutrality. So we need to spend more money for capex to improve the environmental performance. So we need to balance between the financial input and some environmental performance. So that will be the new challenge we are facing now.
Thank you. Sharifa, would you have anything else to add on that topic or how it relates to your company?
Okay, Christian, thank you so much for that question. A very good morning. Thank you to APREA for inviting me to be part of this edition of APREA Real Assets TV, and hello to all fellow panelists. So I'm Sharifa, the representative from Malaysia. I head ESG at UEM Agenta Berhad. UEM Agenta is an asset management company, and we provide facilities management services across 4 different asset classes: ranging from healthcare assets, commercial buildings, and road and infrastructure networks such as bridges and other related transport networks. We also provide engineering consultancy services where we provide engineering consultancy advice on the built environment space. Now, we are headquartered here in Malaysia. We've got presence in 5 countries, and some of our iconic assets include the Prime Minister's office in Putrajaya, and we also manage the country's longest highway. Now, challenges that we face, some of it very similar to what some of my other panels have mentioned. As a listed company on Bursa Malaysia, there is a huge amount of data that we need to bring to disclose, which we do through our sustainability statement. Now, this process, Christian, is at the moment very manual, and we are looking at ways on how we can automate this. The next challenge that we face is the question on costs. I always get asked by my board, sure, we are incurring all this, but where are the returns? So that's an ongoing dialogue that we face, not just with board, but also with our shareholders and our other investors. And then, of course, one other aspect that I want to touch on is the scarcity of talent in the sustainability space. It is actually very, very hard to look for talent within or even outside. And so what we do to overcome this is we try to develop green skills so that we're able to actually serve our purpose. And also we try to create a very, very conducive working environment so that we can attract talent. I just want to quickly touch on that point that you asked on integrating S and G into E. I get asked this question so much because we have been focusing a lot on the E factor. And maybe I'd like to answer this question by giving some examples. So in our line of work, our services are largely delivered by our frontliners. We place a paramount importance on the health and safety of our frontliners because their safety means that they are able to actually go out and carry out their function and keep assets safe for our clients and for users. Their mental health well-being is also something equally important to us. So we provide the services of in-house trained psychologists as well as mental health aiders to be able to help them in managing work stress. I'm also very, very pleased to share with everybody that we are one of the companies that have got almost equal participation of women in our senior management team. And we've got a very diversified board as well. And so that's how, Christian, we embed the S and the G in our ESG journey.
Thanks, Sharifa. I'm going to stay with you for one more question because it came up from the notes in our discussion earlier. And it was really related to responsibility. One of the questions you felt was relevant is, as managers of REITs or third-party capital, do you feel that you should be imposed these climate targets, or is it the owner's responsibility at the end of the day? Right.
So, Christian, when we carry out our facilities management work at the moment, we are already being given performance targets. And so performance targets include the well-functioning of assets, air quality, how safe assets are, the number of repair and maintenance. And so moving forward, I foresee that there will be climate targets that will be imposed. We are heavily using technology to assist us in doing preventive analysis, in detecting repairs and maintenance that's required. And I foresee these systems also being switched to also include carbon footprint, for example, and that can potentially be tagged to our work and how our work can actually reduce our clients' footprint.
Great. So I guess what it basically means is that, and for the REITs themselves, maybe this is something that needs to be hardwired into the mandate, where when the management does spend this money on these targets, that it was something that the owners, shareholders, et cetera, have already signed up for. But maybe let me go over to Calvin. How would you answer that question if it's relevant to you?
So the question is, do I feel that we should be imposed, we should have climate targets imposed on us, or is it our responsibility? My answer to this is yes. And it means, yes, that I think that climate targets should be imposed on us. And yes, it is our responsibility as well. I don't think that these two are mutually exclusive. And one of the reasons for this is that, you know, we have already set our climate targets, net zero by 2035. This is before governments where there's a lot of governments around the world are setting their targets at 2050. We've set ours at 2035 because we feel that this is how we can take better accountability and ownership of this target. Now, just because we've set 2035, we have other organizations in Australia that have set targets to be 2030. And this is a way to challenge the industry itself to make improvements. So by having climate targets imposed upon us, we can at least understand from a regulatory perspective where governments want to go with this. We can understand from an investor's perspective what their thinking is and how they might be looking at climate strategies within their own investment approaches and how we can be a part of those strategies. In the end, it is definitely our responsibility because as a manager of a real estate investment trust, we need to make sure that our portfolio remains productive. And the only way we can do that is by anticipating some of the challenges that are coming up and making sure that we start identifying the mitigation strategies and even the portfolio management strategies as well. That's how we can make sure that we continue to deliver growing returns to our unit holders.
Thank you. Suzuki-san, would you have anything else also to add on that question? Do you think it's also something that should be imposed on the asset managers?
I agree with Calvin, actually. We are imposed to do that by investors, lenders, and also stakeholders. And also, we strongly believe that it is our responsibility. So we set our SBTi target, and we have not 2035, but 2050 carbon neutrality target. We have to achieve this target. This is a very, very high level, important object for us. Having said that, you know, achieving the target is becoming more and more challenges to us. So last 10 years, it's relatively easy. You know, we changed all the light bulbs to LED, and also we changed the high performance equipment into aircon, high performance aircon. That is win-win for everybody. You know, we can reduce the managing cost, tenants can reduce the, you know, expenses, and environmental performance is becoming better. But, you know, from now on, it's more challenges. You know, in order to achieve the carbon neutrality, we need to introduce more new technologies, which is sometimes be expensive. So, which may increase the cost of the fund and may reduce the profits for investors. So this is a big challenges towards next 20, 30 years. So that's what we are trying to challenge right now.
And for Simon, thank you, Susan. And for Simon, I guess operating in Europe, you're used to having climate issues imposed on you. So just wanted to get your view on that and whether you think that you agree or disagree with comments.
Yeah, I think, Christian, I think this is an area where the governments have actually led a lot of the commercial sector. It's one of the few areas I think that you can look back on and see that you know, the regulators are in front. I'll answer the question two parts. One, wearing my co-chair of the REITs, the Sustainability Committee, we had Ernst & Young write a report of which only 45% of the Singapore REITs were providing climate disclosure up until 2022, when the MAS enforced, and you know, from 2022, there's now 100% of the 44 REITs are now reporting some sort of climate disclosure. And in fact, in comparison to the rest of the world, the Singapore REITs' quality of disclosure is at the upper end. Coming back to Europe, absolutely. And it's in many of our cases, it's to our advantage that the regulations have come in. So for example, in the Netherlands, if an office building is not EPC rated C or higher, that's equivalent to like the energy rating, the stars on a fridge when you go to Harvey Norman, you can't lease or sell the building. 45% of Dutch buildings today aren't at that level. All of our buildings are at that level. Or above. Only 20% of the entire 300 million square meters of office in Europe has a BREEAM rating. 80% of our buildings are BREEAM certified. So it's not just the regulations that are enforcing this. The Paris Agreement is clearly the pinnacle of regulatory targets of reducing emissions by 40% by 2030. Regardless of your net zero targets, your actual properties have to be 40% lower than the baseline. But other than that, the actual tenants want to move into more energy efficient and climate responsive assets. And we'll touch on this later, but we can actually achieve much higher rents for offering more sustainable buildings. So for us in Europe, it commercially makes sense to be in front of the market with higher energy efficient buildings. You can achieve better occupancy and higher rents, in addition to the sort of the prod from the governments to get there. So there is a carrot and a stick approach, and we're at the forefront of that.
Great, thank you, Simon. This dovetails nicely into the next question I have. Oh, Sharifa, you've raised your hand. Sorry.
Not at all. So, Christian, I just wanted to add to that discussion by saying that actually just asking FM managers or even REIT managers to be responsible for climate target is just one side of the story. I guess the other side is also giving us a little bit more discretion to be able to affect the outcome. So, for example, when we do maintenance work on highways or even at hospitals, our work is divided into two parts. One is the routine maintenance and the other one is non-routine. So if climate targets are to be imposed, I would suggest, or I would think, we need to have a little bit more of discretion in running some of the costs, because how else can we influence the targets if we cannot actually have a little bit more room to make suggestions or improvements?